Hey, my name is Renee Prince, and I am a clinical practicing herbalist, but I'm also a traditional healer. And I'm sitting here with some of our practitioners in our mountain home, and we were talking about the implications of world action on our personal well being. And I stopped what we were doing and said that we needed to record this. And so that's basically just what it is. We work as clinical practitioners, but we also support worldwide things, traditional healing type of things, the wellness of the planet, other people, and I think because of that, we're extremely empathetic. And I also think that there's lots and lots and lots of people in the world, especially the new generations being born, that are born with the connection that we all had, but more aware of other things, like more empathetic type things, like feeling the sadness of others, feeling the hatred of others, feeling the anger of others, as well as what's implanted into the ground. And we come across things like that all the time with First Nations people or war grounds where the ground itself makes us feel sad. So what was just said was, I said, Amber, how are you feeling? And she said, inappropriately sad. And I said, no, 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 no. You just watched me cry after talking to a bunch of military men this morning for no reason. It's not inappropriate. And then I said, this should be recorded because there's people who need to hear this. So this is the space that we're in. I'm flipping the camera around for a second. See, there's one, there's two, there's three sitting here with me. And I'll flip it when I hear them talking. And if I have to repeat it so that we can hear it, I will. But I think it's important for the world to understand that we are not solitary. We're part of a global and a universal community. And what you do impacts others, good or bad. So I just said, it's not inappropriately sad. I got upset talking to military guys this morning. And Sam said, what are you talking about? And so here it is. This is what I'm talking. So we found out that friends of ours, we all grew up in the military communities in different places, and that friends of ours are kind of being called back up. And that's not a big deal if you devote your time to being a first responder or in the military and protecting freedom all over the globe. Then things like that are going to happen. The big deal is that our reaction to it. Like the idea around, I do some military work that's higher up, like top secret stuff. I don't do that, but my people are top secret. And I started reaching out to people immediately about like, hey, is this true? Is like something going on? And instead of looking at it very clinically or technically or gathering the facts, my first response is I just wanted to sob. And it's not because I'm weepy or emotional, it's because their urgency was felt in their words. And so the idea of as a family unit, family unit, family unit, family unit, and one that's over there that you can't see, as a family unit, we are feeling the pains of. So, Amber, I don't think it's inappropriate. And what happened, Sam, this morning is we had a conversation about it, and I started hitting up everybody I know and the different branches and the people, and their responses to me literally made me sick to my stomach. And they responded very evenly. But just like when I talk to you guys, hey, some of the things that we talk about are like metaphysical things because we teach traditional healing. When I talk to you guys or when we're talking to a client or a patient, and just from the text, I can kind of see where they're doing and where they are, where the pain is. That's what happened. And so in these very, very adept, skilled, know their job men, I'm feeling their urgency, even if they're hiding it in the way that they're answering me, or even if they're hiding it from themselves, because that's how they get through their job. So I immediately couldn't eat, and I had ordered a really good breakfast. I don't even know if I touched my ham. Like I ordered like the Mac Daddy plate, with all the stuff on it. And I basically was like, and then it kept going on. And I just got more upset. And I mean, obviously you did too. Mm-hmm. But the idea of, so then what happened, and I'm going to switch it to look at them, even though they may not want me to do that. Then what happened was I reached out to another one of our practitioners that's like family, because I always promise them they're separate than we are. And so I always promise them that if something happens, I'll let them know so that we can be prepared in case there's deployments or World War III or whatever it is. And when I did that, it actually kind of got worse, that I started feeling more sad and more urgent. And the idea is then I went to Elders and Water because my body couldn't handle it. So you weren't home yet, Sam. And what happened for me was, I'm pretty sure in the night I had seizure activity because I just was so sick. I woke up just out of my mind. All the muscles tensing up and seizing, and sick to my stomach, and couldn't get myself together, and I actually thought for a second I was having a heart attack, but I didn't have racing heart or I didn't have any of the symptoms. I'm a clinical practitioner as well, so I put myself through the symptom check, and I didn't really have that symptom check, but I had all these things that were really weird, and now I think it's related to that. Like this, it's ramping up. So the thought process that, especially as sensitive, like Sam's younger than myself and younger than Amber, and the idea that like the younger generations are even more sensitive to what's happening universally. And then there's a group of people all of a sudden that are in fear or have anxiety over the fact that they're getting ready to fly away and protect us from some skirmish. It's like a web, like a network. We can feel it. We can feel their loss before it happens. We can feel their anxiety even though they feel like they're kept. And that's kind of what I meant, Amber, when I said, it's not inappropriate. And we've all gone through this before with our other family members and with our other loved ones. And so the idea of, I feel like we're responsible for shifting things on a dime. And so because of that, probably from the time that we were children, we were feeling other people's emotions. So us being able to feel it the way it is, and like you being sad, also is your superpower. And that's one of the reasons why I thought it was important to record this, because we're also sensitive, and because of that, it feels like a hindrance.
Well, I'm going to push into that because of what we know and what we talk about with fabric theory, string theory, multiple outcomes, how things can shift with ease, that the feelings that we're having being so intense, and knowing that that's a strong possibility and a strong thread that we may end up down. Because we're sensitive and because we are who we are, is it our duty then to shift our attention to the other thread of relief and bypass? Do we influence?
Is it our right?
Is it our right? Like, do we just sit here and feel what is coming? Are we able to take action and course correct?
Are we supposed to?
Are we supposed to?
Which is such a bad word in a way, like shoulds.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you guys didn't get that, basically Amber was saying, like, in the thought of that, is it important for us to like know our place, or is it important for us to think that we can shift? What I will tell you is my immediate response to our other partnership that's not here was, yes, this is what's happening. They're very military minded and prepare and like our protector. So their response was, well, what can I do to be ready? And I said, no, don't do that. Understand that you have the ability, we have the ability, all of you who are going to hear this have the ability of absolutely influencing this moment in time for the vibration, or you said fabric, the weave, to not be tangled. And so it's not that we're stopping, although like one of my teachers, Rocio, would say, manage the forces.
Right.
It's not that we're stopping something from happening, more than if we in fact change the vibration, what happens? And us feeling this, what if we didn't have control over it at all, but we do have connection with these people because we're feeling that, right? If we changed our vibration, do they in fact feel better themselves because, like a piano wire, it moves backwards. And so, whatever job they have to do, good, bad, dirty, whatever, does it give them the right vibration on their end? Because if we're feeling them, they're feeling us. We're not changing an outcome more than supplying energy to a vibration that's different than lower vibration. What happens, happens. Is it like like one more person survives because that person had one more ounce of energy to do one more compression? We're not, I don't know how to answer that, because I do think it's our duty to keep the vibration at a certain point or better, because one of the vibrations denotes consumption and one of them denotes expansion. And shouldn't we always be trying to rise up? And so it's not like we're stopping war more than we're rising up. So that kept being my response. My response kept being to our other partnership, kept being, yep, this is what you would do. And in my day, I'm quite a bit older than the person I'm talking about, that in my day, I'm going to move back so you can see both of them at the same time because it's kind of weird. In my day, a long time ago, I lived through an oil embargo, like real little, when I was real little. I lived through an oil embargo, and I can remember there being like not enough bread on the shelves type of thing, simply because we didn't have enough fuel to get everything where it needed to go. So we didn't have enough fuel to get bread. And people don't understand, when we have fighting all over, like we're a global community, whether people like to admit it or not, we are in human and earthly and animal partnership all over the world. Like we feel it if the whales are killed on the other side of the world, or if China's having a hard time, we have a hard time, that kind of thing. And at the point that we start to realize the human component and the being component, so if we're fighting with somebody like China, we're in trouble. And not in trouble in a way that, like, God will provide, God willing, that type of thing. But like in trouble, like, it's going to affect our environment. It's going to affect whether we have medical supplies. It's going to affect our jobs. We're going to end up like having a depression over the fact that, like, if we can't get the right food, then people won't be going to restaurants. If we don't have enough money because everything's so expensive because of like an oil embargo, Kuwait, then we will not have our jobs. And so then what do we do? Even if we had, 4 loaves of bread to buy between 4,000 people, and, they're $20, $30, $40 a piece. Like, that's what happens. Like, we see demonstration of that all over the world. So what is our deal? Like, what's our burden and what's our privilege around that? Like, what do you guys think we should be doing about that? So I pushed into that more. You guys may not know. So both of you can respond to this when I say that. So what happened is, as soon as we found this out, it was something we already thought was coming. Yeah. Because I had asked. Do you remember me asking about the? Yeah, we talked about it a few weeks ago. You. But do you remember me saying, wait a minute? Just a couple days ago, I said with you guys sitting here, wait a minute, he's not back yet. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was only supposed. Yeah, it was only supposed to be 2 weeks, and now it's turned into 4, and that means something's going on. And then I immediately started asking my military people. So yeah, we've been talking about it. So when I just left just now, like one of the things I was doing was, sitting on that rock in the middle of safety, not imagining, but foreseeing the situation to the highest and best of all involved. Mm-hmm. And I feel like there's a piece to it that comes where you kind of know that you're on the right track, versus us trying to manipulate it because we're just like loving, kind people that want people not to fight and not to die. Yeah. And so if you want to say something, I want to be close to you because I want.
I was going to say, I mean, sometimes as painful as it is, destruction is needed in order for new pathways to be formed.
No change ever comes from being comfortable.
Exactly. So how do we get through
Like, what are we doing?
What is coming?
What's our responsibility?
What is our responsibility?
Right. Sam, do you have anything to say to that? Like, to add? This is just a discussion. It's like there's no answer.
No, I'm just taking it all in. It's just...
So, I believe I haven't felt well, and we haven't felt well because this was coming, and I think that we're sensitive and hooked to a lot of people involved in it. I also believe that we're hooked to all kinds of people all over on different continents because of what we teach and how we talk. I think that we're a global community. I think that we're a universal community. So if we only ever thought about vibrationally keeping the highest possible for the situation, like we hear about those Superman moments with people in war and stuff. I mean, maybe that's just our obligation, is to simply be joyful and happy to the best of our ability.
To counterbalance the war and destruction that's happening.
Yeah.
Like the energy
Yeah.
balance.
Yeah. Something like that to counterbalance the, in case you guys didn't hear
So
that.
it doesn't teeter too far one way.
So what Sam's saying is just like literally like, scales of justice. If it's teetering one way, is it our responsibility to seek love and support and happiness to teeter it, the positive charges, another way? So I don't think it's inappropriately feeling sadness. What I do think is, if we have the responsibility of channeling things, because I went back, I'm letting Sam know this because she wasn't here when it happened. Well, you were, but you weren't here when I came back. I went back down to the First Nations ground and met with them yesterday. And I did think I talked to you because I saw your hair before we came back, but we didn't have extensive talk about it. And so I do think that was part of it too. Like the fact that we had gone down to like Sadville, USA, like that ground wasn't happy. Several layers of persecution and death and taken over and stuff that went on, that it's a privilege to feel it, but then what's our responsibility to shift it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Or, I mean, I don't think anyone has to do anything, but I feel like it's that way. Like if we know how to work on an oiled rig and we're not, we need to go work on an oil rig. You know, like if you have a special skill.
Right. I mean, if you're standing on an oil rig and the oil rig breaks and you know how to fix it,
you shouldn't just stand there.
You should
yeah.
do what you can. So.
And I also think that the new babies being born, we were talking about women's health, we're clinical herbalists, and we were talking about women's health. I believe like the new babies being born vibrationally, I mean, they exist in water and their mom's eating the food that's coming up and watching the news that's happening. Your news conversation this morning.
Right.
Like,
I mean, of course there's going to be an increase of anxiety amongst the youth because of all the anxiety, like during COVID and everything. Any kids in that time, they're going to have an immense amount of anxiety, and then the moms during those times, or if we went through that, there's already been an increase in anxiety, depression, so when they have those kids, they're going to have a more,
they're going to already be imprinted with that energy.
Yeah, they're going to have a higher risk of having severe anxiety or depression or mental disorders that were going to pop up.
Well, let's take that a little bit deeper. Like the parents that were having babies that were pregnant during COVID, if you look at the time frame and the age of them, their mothers were pregnant during the beginnings of the war of
that's so
9/11.
good, Amber.
That's right.
That's so good, Amber.
That embryo is now double impacted because that embryo was in the womb of their grandmother.
How about
during all
metaphysically
of that.
pushing it farther? What if that was the spiral back around? What if they're hitting the notch back around? That they, like the spiral of like our destiny and reliving those things one more time and seeing how we react that time. Like that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because that came up. So you guys know that came up today? The like today in the conversation when I'm trying to figure out what's happening. remembering how things were during 9/11, remembering how things were, that came up today in the
Yeah.
conversation several times, different ways. And I'm like, that's interesting, because some of the friends that are higher up get all excited and do the, well, just like in 9/11, we're not going to let them do anything to it, like that kind of thing.
Right.
And then the other ones do the exactly what you guys both just said, do the what's the impact? I can remember when this happened. I'm a little bit older than some of the people we'd be talking to, not the government officials, but some of our helpers.
Well, each time that we've had conflict in the Middle East, there's always been the worry of, you know, is this the beginning? Is this the moment where World War III is going to be declared? But we haven't quite had such bad relations with so many different countries at the same time during this conflicts, because even predating 9/11, if we go back into the 90s with
It's been very buy or try, like this, like Cold War. Like it's been very this against this. It hasn't been so dispersive that everybody's involved.
in the back end, there's been layers of relations and minor conflict, but it hasn't been such a global outspoken issue.
We're in a
And
different time period.
so when you say, is this the spiral that's coming around, this very well can be the spiral. It is politically as well as spiritually, like basically the start of the 90s of that spiral. And it's just, instead of spiraling out and dispersing, it feels like it's spiraling and tunneling towards.
That's deep.
Yeah.
I never think that way, and it's probably being naive, but that's like, I was thinking that as you were saying it, but wasn't going to say it because I was like, ooh, are we not getting out of that one? You know what I'm saying? Like normally we get to step through that spiral. What we're talking, yeah, like sorry.
No,
going.
go ahead.
Well, what we're talking, I'm explaining for anyone listening. What we're talking about is like if we're reliving patterns to work through them, so karmically we get to adjust through them and make amends and break these patterns and move on. We believe that we repeat that like a spiral over and over. It comes up. So if we have that imprint on the world, if we have that imprint on babies, if we have that imprint on ourselves, how does that affect, like that's kind of, we're talking about from a very fabric cosmic thought process to that. I'm thinking that, yeah.
Well, okay, so just for people trying to, that we're whoever hears this, my thought process here is like, so when we go through a traumatic event and we break a cycle and we break a pattern, as we heal, we spiral outward, and we'll still see that event, usually same time frame, yearly, like in a cycle condition, but it'll get further and further out, and it'll become easier and easier to deal with and recognize and move past. But in this case here, it's like we're not, we haven't broken the pattern, so we keep repeating it, and we're on a spiral of tightening to where it makes you, it forces you to deal with the issue. And then once that issue is dealt with, it kind of breaks out, and that's when you can start the spiral back out in like the torus field.
Yeah, I guess you did such a good job. That's exactly what that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
But the idea around, does that build pressure in the cylinder and burst like you just said? Yeah, like I think so. Like I think it does.
Yeah, and then I definitely feel like it's spiraling down. I mean, on the social media climate in general, everyone that's my age, younger, like 30 to like probably 15, because this kids these days know so much about everything. There's just a no, I don't give a fuck attitude about everything. It's the past 23 years of my life, it's been the World War III is gonna happen. And so then all these kids that are under 20 with social media and during COVID, there's so much anxiety and just not giving a fuck and hating the government. and all of these things. That it's
Yeah.
spiraling down.
It's
Especially with my generation, the younger one, they don't care at all anymore.
Well, they're definitely. What were you going to say? I want you
Well,
to.
I was going to say, I mean, it's definitely a pressurized container. I mean, we're seeing genocide in so many different countries simultaneously, and we're just simply not doing anything about it, or we're doing surface level things to the humanity of the matter is that there are people being wiped out all over the globe for industrial, commercial,
Diamonds.
right?
Stupidness.
I mean, stupid things. We're not just talking about what's going on.
Dyes for clothes.
In
Yeah.
Israel and in Palestine. We're talking about South America. We're talking about Africa. We're talking about even the
Here.
Asian and here.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's happening globally where we're just sweeping it under the rug. And I think that you get to a point energetically where the balance is so off that you're forced to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
And we did just talk about that this morning, even accidentally, because what I said was, preacher or a politician always on a soapbox, if we don't say something, we're negligent. If you look away, what do I say? You guys, we have a traditional school and we work in ceremony as healers. And what do I say to you guys about be nothing more? Be nothing more. Don't be anything more than a ministry of presence. Like, just don't look away. And so if we don't look away, like, you're sad because you're choosing not to look away after finding out this information. So what we do after that, like, we can't allow it to dampen our shine, and that we have to be able to be strong. So there were several things about what both of you said that I wanted to say something about. And because we're talking about this, I decided to record this because I think that enough good things aren't said, and the idea that other people will understand that if you feel the pains of others, like, there's other people like you and there's things that you can do about it. The idea about your generation, Sam, like all the people that are a little above you and a little below you, like my children are in there. The idea that they've grown up, and Amber's children are in there too, that they've grown up, you've grown up with not being, we just talked about this with the whole Tom Brokaw thing, with like, who's on TV right now telling you guys, reporting news to you? They're the devil. Even if you don't believe in what a devil is, it's not true.
On both spectrums of Fox News.
Good. Oh, it doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what it is. You are simply not being told the truth.
No, there's so many of us going on alternative news sources to try to find out the real answer. And then with social media, TikTok in particular, because you can just post so readily, like, there's so many accounts that get banned because they're posting real life events that are happening right now, but it doesn't go with the narrative of the news that they want, and so they're banned or shut off. Yeah, and then we're not actually getting the proper information anymore.
And for us in particular, that's exactly what we're talking about. This happened, like, this happened real time. Like, this is happening, like, for the conversation that started, for everybody who's listening, the conversation that started this, it was happening real time. It happened, and then we started getting information because I started asking, like, hey, is this the deal? And this is what went on. And so we're not going to see that. No. And then when I reported in to our missing counterpart, when I reported in, I kept saying, do you remember blah, blah, when this happened? And it showed for like a day, and they couldn't find it. And I'm like, of course you couldn't find it, because it was taken down immediately, just like what Sam was saying. And the only reason I think this is important is because I feel like you guys need to understand, everybody who would be listening to this needs to understand that, here, I'll switch it, needs to understand that being present, not looking away, being squeaky, having your mouth, regardless of how scary it is, saying the truth, is the most impactful thing in the world. But also understanding, if you do work as a healer, or if you are an empathetic person, understanding the strife it puts you in, and like understanding what you can do to like shield yourself or help yourself with that. Because that was the thing. Because as long as, so what happened is when all of this went down, I went to a special ceremonial place and like dealt with it. And then I come home and my loved ones, i.e. the two you were just looking at, are sad and upset. And that's the truth. And that's, and you know, I'm okay because the earth protected me, and they're sad because it didn't. Like, you know, they didn't get a chance to do that, and they were in the normal world dealing with it while I was playing fairy world. And so understanding that there's things that we can do, I don't know what our obligation is for the rest of it, but what I do know is for me, whether you two like it or not, like, you're important, and you're part of a vibrational web that's universal, that weaves a pattern, and we can control that at least, which is what, like what do we do? What's our responsibility? So we can at least control that part and do our best to help that line that we're standing on, like that thread we're standing on to weave that fabric. But it was interesting because I was only okay when I did the envisioning the things that could be happening, and then took a breath into how that felt, and then envisioned it coming all out to the best of everybody, and took a breath into how that felt. And I immediately got this, like, peace is the best way to say it. I immediately got this peace about it, and I could feel the actual presence of something there that was bigger than me, like other beings providing me with like peace for a second.
Yeah.
And so I decided to hook into that as of like, not, I don't want to make myself sick, so I'm going to hook into that feeling.
Okay.
And then I came off the rock and stepped over the water. I went to the rock that's at the corner of the bend in Soko.
Yeah.
But yeah. And the water was really low, so I could step right onto it. I didn't have to wade through water to get to it. And so I purposely stepped off that rock and tried to hold that feeling, and then stepped back onto the rock, trying to practice holding that, knowing that I was getting ready to drive on the highway and drive back to you guys, and it wasn't going to feel awful once I got back to reality.
Bring it with you.
Yeah, to try to see.
Yeah.
Because then every single person, like we're recording this right now, so every single person that sees this
is affected by that vibration that you
Yeah,
maintain
yes.
versus the lower vibration it seeds out.
perfect, yes.
Yeah.
And so is that our obligation?
Absolutely 100%.
In my head, I feel like it is. And I'm not placing an obligation on either one of you or anyone listening to this, but I
No.
feel like that's what I can do.
But that was part of the conversation with the friend, and maybe not so much a verbal conversation, but the active practice of going through that conversation with them and maintaining my vibration and
During
my
it.
thought during it,
Mm-hmm.
and then covering them to raise them to a higher channel, because they're going out and going to have contact with
Lower.
lower as well as thousands
Of more.
people. And so if we can affect one person in a positive projection versus the negative projection that they were on previously, how far out can we tidal wave the change?
What's our
even
impact?
though we have to go through this whole scenario, how can we make it easier
Tammy, do you want to
or
say
for
anything?
the best?
It's okay if not.
Well, I mean, I feel like we have to, like, bear witness to the pain, but, like, just keep the energy even killed or higher. And so healing ourselves will heal others, and that will go, project out and hopefully just make everything calm instead of spiraling down.
So that's actually a good point. Real quick, I'll tell both of you this. Yes, because together we'll make a bigger impact if we continue to just make sure that we're maintaining at least a status level.
Yeah, if we just stay on an even kill energy level instead of going extreme in one or the other way, that our energy will even kill other people's energy, because if they're lower, they have to match our vibration
Yeah.
in one way or another.
So they have to come up or
They have to come down.
piss or get off the pot.
So
Yeah.
this ties into the conversation that I had on Friday. This very specific thing about somebody was asking me how meditation leads to alignment, or they felt like a job had come to them because they had gone out into the woods and meditated. And I was explaining that on Friday to somebody in those exact terms, that as you raise that vibration, as you raise your electromagnetic field and you allow your brain to operate in the higher states of like delta and theta, that your actual magnetic field grows larger. And so as you come into contact with other people, that vibration, it's not a woo-woo term. He's an accountant, so he's a very practical minded person, but he's trying to expand his knowledge of like how life works.
Just trying to learn.
Just trying to learn. And that as we expand our field, energy can't maintain at two different vibrations. So it's either going to be repelled out, or it's going to vibrate and bring it up to that same level. And so I just think it's interesting that it's coming up. These conversations keep cycling, even though we're not sitting around talking specifically to each other about these concepts.
We're having our different experiences, but coming to the same conclusion.
Yeah, it's hanging in several different areas of our lives, and I think that's something that it's important for us to pay attention to. That
I'm gonna
even the elders.
I'm gonna say something
from
about
2
that.
weeks ago,
Yeah.
a couple of weeks
Yeah.
ago, have very specific. That's about that importance.
Well, I'm gonna say something about that, and about what you were saying. The idea around, so the whole time I was gone, I did pray the entire time without stopping, and I always feel like I don't have the right to pray for people that don't know I'm praying for them, because it's like what I'm asking for, obviously it may not be what they want or whatever. And so what I usually do when that's the case is ask for it to be peace, to feel like sturdiness and peace, to be at peace wherever their situation is, whatever their situation is, to be in peace about it, like to be okay. And so that gentle word, like just being peaceful and grateful, what does that feel like? And so I think that's a safe place of being for all people involved. And then, I mean, I guess if you were a serial killer or a psychopath, that wouldn't be what we wanted. But the other thing is what you were saying is, I was going to say to both of you, the obligation around this. If you see it coming up, like you just brought up, that it's coming up for us over and over, even when we're not together, it's the same conversation we're having about different situations. As spiritual leaders in our community, as traditional healers, as people who are in charge of helping facilitate healing of other people, what is that telling us about us if it keeps coming up? It's basically chastising us. It's not in a bad way, but it's basically saying,
it's saying like, hey,
like look.
Make sure you're doing this.
Yeah. So all of a sudden, like, that's the case. And so I had a terrible night. I felt really sick enough to take myself to the hospital. Like, it was that bad. I felt so awful. And my response, better than any other time usually, like it usually takes a couple days to recover, was to do something about it quickly to change my vibration. Right. And I do think it worked. What were you going to say, Sam?
This year for the three of us has just been so challenging. Put it politely. Complex. That we're getting to this point where we're realizing that we need to do all the things, ritual in, ritual out, to make sure that we're just okay.
No cutting corners.
No cutting corners. Doing the thing, having the right food in our bodies, going to water, going into nature, not doing art in any way that that means for you. Just trying to get ourselves out of this challenging time to just be okay. okay.
Monitoring the intake of what we're listening to and
Yeah.
what we're watching and what we're surrounding ourselves with.
And I feel like this past month or two, all three of us have really come to the conclusion that we just need to stop doing certain things and just go in the opposite direction to make sure that we're expanding and raising our vibrations so that we can be healed, so others can be healed, because
That's our job.
That's our job.
That's why
Yeah.
we're on Earth, is
Like,
to be in service in that way. And so what are we doing?
healers.
Right. And that we're going to fulfill our destination by doing that.
And so for us to be healers, we have to be okay.
I will tell you when we're done with this, because I'm not going to tell on myself on camera, but I called Amber and said, hey, I figured it out. I totally did this to myself.
Yeah.
Like, I figured out what happened. And
I do say, like, for the three of us, our patterns that we have are getting
better.
Like, we're
I know
catching it quicker.
for me
Yeah,
they are.
we're
For me
doing
they are.
things better. Like,
we're course correcting
We're-
almost
yeah.
immediately, but it's the chemical burn.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
You know, like the
I
fact
forgot
is,
about that.
We're just
We're sensitive.
We're sensitive, and what's funny is that there was a conversation that was playing in my head before I even got to that location, where sometimes, you know, I'm trying to figure out how to necessarily describe myself to somebody as it's a first interaction, because
What do we say?
What do we say?
We look crazy.
we look crazy. I can't eat certain foods. I can't be in certain situations. And that was what I had come to, is like, well, I'm just very sensitive, and that I have to maintain attention to those sensitivities because there's a backlash if I don't. And during that encounter, ended up with chemical burns on my elbows from
By the way,
cleaners
while you were in service,
while I was
instead of
in
being cared
service.
for.
Yeah.
Like that's so interesting.
And
Should've worn this
probably
out.
one of the very first things you said on the recording is that we're community-based people. Like,
Yeah,
that's
we're not
two-
solitary
And
beings.
I feel like the three of us all living together, oh my god, I can't deal with that.
Definitely is helpful.
Is helping
The dog's being crazy.
tremendously. Because we are checking each other.
It's evident.
Which is allowing us to course correct even faster, because the three, like, we'll notice, you do it, like, going off the rails, and then one of us will start going off the rails, and then the other, like, we're all doing it, but then two of us can see one of us going off and
So,
course correct.
I called Amber on the way and said, I don't even know why I'm telling you this. I figured it out, and I basically told on myself. And I think it's for that reason, just
Yeah.
because of us watching. But that's what it takes, like family. And you brought up the COVID thing, the whole idea around separation, like
It
severe
was a huge
separation.
separation. Like, we completely got separated from our own communities, and we were just now trying to get it back to normal.
Maybe it's like a SUST or like a PTSD
Oh,
over.
I definitely think it's a PTSD, SUTOS thing. Like, the amount of people that don't even want to go out anymore because they just don't know how to do it, because it was locked down for 2 years.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so here, I'm going to stop. By the way, I just made this, but the idea that I just, like, they're sitting gently talking, and I'm like, here, we're recording this because I feel like the world needs to hear what we have to say. The idea of, like, we'll be done with this, but like, let's, like, wrap it together why it was important to record this. The idea around you have an impact in the world, whether you realize it or not. You have an impact in the world, and we have an obligation as beings to care for other beings. And it doesn't mean you have to put yourself at harm's way, but it means you need to realize how important you are to yourself and to others. And the idea of you creating and cultivating joy in your life and being super positive can have an impact on the other side of the globe. And that when we start to see and feel and hear things that aren't necessarily ours, like sadness and emotions that are, you know, for the way the world is going, don't look away, but understand you cultivating joy within yourself flips it, the vibration to the other side. So I think that's why it was important to record this.
And I want to say one more thing.
Yes.
Just, it can be so simple for something for you to just complimenting someone. It's so easy to do that. Just like, I like your hair today. Like, it looks good.
It doesn't take anything from you.
Nothing. And it's the smiles that you see with someone when you compliment someone. It just, you can feel the energy just radiate out and be like, oh my god, my hair does look really good today. Like, and then that person is walking with a higher vibration and joy that will go out to other people. And so it's just such a small impact can just like
it makes the web.
Yeah.
It could, because all the thousands of people, right?
Person,
yeah.
Their energy will impact other people.
Not enough good things are said in the world.
Yeah, and so it doesn't take a lot. Just a simple compliment can go so long.
Yeah.
In the universe. So.
Tidal waves of joy.
Tidal waves of joy. Yes. Thank you. Thank you, elders. Tidal waves of joy. We're so far told that we look like we have tidal waves of joy because we laugh hysterically at stupid things. Okay, so I'm going to be done with this for you guys. And my name's Renee Prince, and that was Amber and Sam, 4 Elements School of Traditional Medicine. You count. You're important. Remember that. Bye.